They slaughtered the innocent, they betrayed the loyal, they destroyed everything that mattered, and yet, we can't look away. In fact, sometimes we admire them. From the moment they step into the frame, something about them pulls us in. Not just their power, their presence, or their purpose, but something deeper, something darker, something disturbingly familiar. This is more than just fiction. This is the psychology of evil. This is the disturbing truth behind why we fall in love with anime's most twisted minds. Evil that reflects us. We're not drawn to anime villains simply because they're strong or stylish. We're drawn to them because somehow they feel real. Not real in the physical sense, but in a way that hits somewhere emotional, somewhere raw. Many of the most captivating anime villains share characteristics that psychology has labeled as dangerous. There's an infamous trio of traits known as the Dark Triad: narcissism, extreme self-importance, Machiavellianism, manipulative cunning, and psychopathy, lack of empathy or remorse. These villains embody them, not always overtly, but in the way they act, think, and treat others. But anime doesn't just show us these traits, it explains them. It dares us to look beneath the surface and see the human behind the horror. And when we do, that's when things get uncomfortable, because their motivations begin to make sense. Let's start with a man who renamed himself after the thing that consumed him. Pain, the savior who chose suffering. He didn't laugh like a maniac. He didn't deliver monologues soaked in vanity. Pain spoke softly, almost solemnly, as he brought an entire village to its knees. What drove him wasn't the thirst for power, but the belief that the world could only be saved through shared agony. Nagato, once just a helpless child in a war-torn country, watched his parents gunned down in front of him. He saw his best friend die. He experienced loss after loss until grief became his identity. That's when he stopped believing in diplomacy or hope. He stopped believing that people could understand each other through anything but suffering. He created a philosophy from his wounds, a belief that pain was not only a punishment, but a teacher. And so he transformed himself into a god who would use fear and devastation to bring order to a chaotic world. He wasn't just a villain, he was a symbol of what happens when idealism dies and is replaced by despair. And when he stood before Naruto and asked, "How do you bring peace to a world that knows only war?" It wasn't a threat, it was a cry for a better answer than the one he'd chosen. Griffith, the idol who walked into hell. Griffith is the kind of character who breaks you slowly, not with what he becomes, but with what he was before. He was brilliance personified, regal, ambitious, mesmerizing. He didn't command with fear, but with presence. He made people believe they were part of something extraordinary, a dream larger than life. But Griffith's dream didn't include everyone. It was his and his alone. When injury shattered his chance at fulfilling that dream, something inside him snapped. He couldn't bear to be ordinary. So when the opportunity came to rise again, not as a man, but as something greater, he took it, even if it meant sacrificing the very people who made him human. That betrayal wasn't impulsive. It was calculated, cold, terrifying. The eclipse wasn't just a massacre, it was a transformation. Griffith shedding his humanity like old skin. In that moment, we witnessed the horrifying realization that ambition, unchecked and absolute, will devour anything in its path. Even love, even loyalty. He didn't scream, he didn't rage, he simply ascended. And we watched in horror, knowing we'd never look at him the same way again. Sukuna, the monster with no mask. While Pain gave us philosophy and Griffith gave us tragedy, Sukuna brings a much more ancient terror, pure, unfiltered chaos. He has no tragic origin, no noble dream, no hidden wound seeking to be healed. Sukuna is evil in its rawest form, not as a product of pain, but as a celebration of dominance. He doesn't pretend, he doesn't hide, he revels in destruction. He toys with life and death like a god with nothing left to prove. But what makes Sukuna dangerous isn't just his strength, it's his freedom. In a world governed by rules, guilt, and morality, Sukuna exists beyond them all. He is the fantasy of what it would mean to be unbound, to live without apology, without hesitation, to take whatever you want, whenever you want it, and smile while doing it. That's what unnerves us. And yet, that's also what attracts us. Because deep down, we all have that voice inside. The one that resents being small, being good, being told no. Sukuna is that voice unleashed. And even as we watch the heroes try to defeat him, part of us doesn't want them to. The villain is a mirror. Here's the uncomfortable truth. We don't just fear these villains, we see ourselves in them. Pain isn't simply a terrorist. He is the reflection of every time we wanted the world to feel the pain it caused us. Griffith isn't just a traitor. He is our ambition unchecked, our willingness to sacrifice relationships in the pursuit of greatness. Sukuna isn't just a killer. He is the darkness we pretend isn't there. The hunger for freedom, power, and revenge we never speak aloud. They're monsters, but they're familiar monsters. They speak the things the hero never dares to say. True peace comes only through shared suffering. To reach the heavens, you must burn everything behind you. If the world is weak, why not rule it? They challenge our morals. They make us question our beliefs. They force us to look inward. And that's what makes them unforgettable. They aren't just part of the story. They are the story. Because they show us the line between good and evil, and how easily it can disappear. And that's the scariest part, because deep down we know every villain is just one decision away. Not just villains, warnings. These characters aren't written to justify evil. They're written to expose it. They don't ask for our sympathy. They ask for our attention. They don't beg to be forgiven. They demand to be understood. And in that demand, they do something more powerful than any final boss fight. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths. Because when we start to understand their logic, no matter how twisted, we begin to realize how easily morality can be bent when the world pushes someone too far. Why does pain lead to cruelty? Why does ambition turn into betrayal? Why does power, once earned, become impossible to let go? Every great villain was once a person trying to survive, to succeed, or to be seen. But somewhere along the line, survival became domination, desire became obsession, and identity was lost to darkness. That's why their stories matter, because they remind us that evil isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, logical, even familiar. They don't just fight the hero, they fight us, our assumptions, our values, our certainty. They make us doubt, they make us reflect, and in doing so, they change us. The shadow within us all. In every unforgettable story, the villain isn't just the enemy, they're the echo of what we could become. They're the silent warning, you are not immune. They show us what happens when emotions run wild, when grief turns to vengeance, when ambition goes unchecked, when we chase power at the cost of compassion. They are the mirror we try to avoid, the distorted reflection that shows us who we might be if we stopped caring, stopped feeling, stopped fighting for what's right. And ironically, that's why we love them. Because in understanding their downfall, we become more aware of our own inner battles. Their presence deepens our connection to the hero. Their darkness sharpens our sense of light. Now it's your turn. Who was the anime villain that shook you? The one that made you question everything you thought you believed? Was it Pain's broken sense of justice? Griffith's impossible ambition? Sukuna's terrifying freedom? Tell us, because the villains you fear the most might say the most about you. Like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the minds of anime's most unforgettable characters.